Hello, it is Isla, your founder, CEO, and host of the Millennial Nutritionist podcast. And this episode is a replay episode from last year or even the year before. It's like one of the first 30, I think. And we are talking all about planning. So this is with Coach Catherine, who actually isn't with us anymore because she is pregnant. I believe she's like 1 week ahead of me. So we somehow got pregnant at the same time and she's taking a break from everything. But it's still a really good episode. And I didn't realize that this episode was also filmed for the Millennial living theme. So of that time. And it's the same of this time. So this is a replay because we are also doing a Millennial living theme of planning. I think planning is really, really important when it comes to weight loss. And it seems like that is a big difference. I always try to ask people when I'm working with them, what do you think you're doing differently? What are you doing to increase your fruit and vegetable intake? What are you doing to be in a calorie deficit? And most often than not, a lot of people tell me that they're just planning more because they're being held accountable, so they have to. But we give our tips and tricks on how we think you should be planning to make your weight loss more successful in today's episode. Other announcements for Millennial Living. Oh, I'm getting like increasingly more out of breath the more pregnant I get. But for Millennial Living, I did post a Costco food haul or guide PDF. So if you go to Costco and you're wanting to know like some new items that they have that would be good for weight loss, high protein, stuff to keep on the shelf, you can go check that out. I also did record, and I just need to edit, which I'm going to try today, edit and post a cooking demo that's going to be how to make sauteed shrimp that you can add on a salad or even just like as a protein with a side vegetable or something like that, just because I think we need some more like protein ideas out there. As far as one-on-one coaching, I am done taking new clients as of now. There might be like special circumstances, like if you want to do the individual, like 1.5 hour session, you could reach out about it. But as far as the 3-month full with me, we're done because in 3 months, I'll be in that window of time where my baby could be here. So as far as what things will look like from here, I'm planning on making that next week's podcast episode. Because I still need to like get clear on it, but you can always be a part of the membership. I might do stuff in there. But just, no more one-on-one counseling from me for now. So make sure to sign up for the membership if you're wanting any sort of like anything from me. But I've been going on way too long. Without further ado, here is today's planning episode. Welcome back to the Millennial Nutritionist podcast. It's Isla, your CEO, founder, and host of the podcast. Today, I have on Coach Catherine here with us, and we're going to talk all about planning because that's going to be the upcoming theme of Millennial Living for this next month. So we're going to give you a little bit of a freebie on what you can do to plan a little bit better for weight loss in general, kind of like however you interpret what that means. But thank you so much for joining us today, Catherine.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
And I don't know if do your clients call you Kat or do you like introduce yourself? I know I've asked you before, but
yeah, I think I mostly professionally do Catherine.
Catherine. Okay.
Most all of my friends still call me Kat.
Okay. Well, for future reference, if I mess up, because I know you as Kat, so I always to double check.
I gladly welcome either one.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So anybody listening, it's the same person. But we are going to, dive in today, all about planning. Okay. So moving on to planning 101, we're going to kind of give our tips for what that looks like. But let's set the groundwork first. So let me just ask you like a couple questions so we can frame why this is even important. So what does planning kind of mean? I feel like after I made some notes, I realized it's like pretty vague, but what do you feel like planning means as far as like maybe like what it can help with weight loss? And like, what does that kind of like mean for you, or what should somebody be thinking about when planning for like a weight loss intervention or anything like that?
I think like the first thing I think of is meal planning, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. I think oftentimes people think in order to lose weight, I have to follow the strict meal plan. And I think I've worked with people before. We are all capable of making meal plans. They take a lot of time. I don't like making them. My problem with meal plans is that it's a very strict thing to follow. And then it doesn't really help equip you to make any choices or decisions on your own when maybe you stop following this 1 month meal plan that you downloaded online, right? Because then it's like, okay, well, back to quote unquote normal life, normal eating. I don't know what to do. And so when I think of planning, I don't necessarily think, okay, here's the whole week, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Everything has to be planned out to a T. When I think of planning, the main thing I think of is planning dinners for the whole week. Of course, lots of planning goes into like, I schedule my exercise or else I'm not going to do it. I plan for my grocery shopping. I plan for my dinners and my meals for the week. I plan like, when am I going to eat out? When am I going to eat at home? Um, I think just, when am I going to get my steps in? When am I going to prioritize getting enough sleep? All those kinds of things. I think all of any sort of intentional change takes planning. It doesn't just happen. And so I think planning can be a lot of different ways. I think the number one thing that comes to mind when I think of it is meal planning. Obviously, because I'm a dietitian, so that's probably the number one thing I'm thinking of. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I think of.
Yeah, I know my mind kind of went to that too. And even like right before I was like trying to gather my thoughts for when we were recording, I was like, I guess we could have taken this like a lot of different ways. And maybe we can just make different episodes about it. Cause we can totally mean that planning. Yeah. It means like planning exercise and stuff like that. And when I think of it, I think it comes to planning your meals too, or planning like how are you going to utilize like the food you have so that it doesn't go bad, which is a common complaint I hear a lot more, adding in more produce. Because then if it goes bad and we only have these like high, like preserved items that tend to stay better longer, like, Cheez-Its, goldfish, ice cream, stuff like that. That's typically going to be higher calorie than the produce that went bad after a couple of days. So like trying to plan to make sure you eat low calorie foods like that. And then also just plan to have enough food. And I think that's the first thing that comes to mind for me too, because that's typically what I tend to work with clients a lot on is trying to make sure they have enough healthy options at their house. So again, that they don't resort to like higher calorie options. Typically when it comes to exercise, I don't feel like, at least my clients don't seem like they need to plan all that much. Maybe because it's just like, you just show up and do it. Like, I think they still have to plan a time of day, but I feel like it seems a little less intricate than like all the facets of nutrition. I just finished my client call right before this too. And she is a good example of somebody that came a long way with planning. Cause I think the other thing when I think of planning is I find that clients before versus after seem like they're so different because they're just so much more aware of what they're eating and what they're doing, which a component of that needs to come from planning, I think, at least in the beginning. And she said that one of her biggest reasons that she was able to lose so much weight was because she planned. She was a nurse, so had these really long shifts. So she couldn't really just rely on exercising every day. She really had to optimize her off days. And so on her off days, she had to plan to prep kind of her snacks or her meals, or at least think of the plan, optimize on those, on the strength sessions on those days she had off, because there's no way she could do it on her days where she was working those 12-hour shifts. And then also making sure to plan to get in more steps that day. So for her, planning really helped her to be more successful, as opposed to just like letting the day go by and thinking like, oh, I'm going to do it the next day. Because that was one major thing she said too, is like when she always had this mentality of like, I'm going to do it the next day would come and go again. So instead, just like planning to kind of do it then and there, or like thinking, okay, no, this day can pass, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. So I think that's just an example too of like what planning can kind of help with weight loss.
Absolutely. It's definitely needed.
Do you think that everybody should or needs to plan to lose weight, or what do you think that can look like?
So I think it's going to look different for everyone. I do think some sort of plan is necessary. It doesn't have to be this really intense thing, but some sort of game plan, general idea. Like with no direction, you don't do anything else that you want to achieve a goal with no plan or no direction, right? And so I think weight loss is the same. I think it's not just going to naturally, easily happen, right? And so it's going to take some intentionality. It's going to take some planning. It's going to depend on how much time you have to commit to it, how many resources, all that kind of stuff. And so I think planning can look like a lot of different things, but I think some planning is required.
Yeah. And I think like you're saying, it can be different and there's different levels. Like when I kind of think about that, like this client specifically too, like she didn't really have to try too hard with planning her meals because she just lived and died by like HelloFresh. So like she would eat it for dinner and then eat leftovers for lunch, which you're paying somebody else to make that plan for you, which worked for her. And so for her plan was just like, I don't know, set it up on autopilot. But for other people, it's like planning of, sitting down and thinking about like what I need from the grocery store and stuff. So I think that it can help, like you said, to just, especially in the beginning, to set those habits so that you're creating those pockets of time to do these habits that I guess you didn't used to before. But going into our tips, let's just kind of share, go back and forth between what are our kind of like top tips when it comes for planning, like what we see works with clients and out in the world and stuff like that.
So as far as meals go, my first one is to evaluate your calendar. I think a lot of times people get really thrown off by events or things that are happening, or I was gone over the weekend and then I came home and I had no groceries. So then I just ate out and then it was already halfway through the week. So then I just did it for the rest of the week. Right. And we get in these cycles. And so evaluating your calendar is huge. That's really where I start with clients and where personally I start. So what do you have going on this week? Do you have a dinner with friends? Do you have an event with family? Do you have a work function? Are you going to be working a different shift? Are you, what's going on? And then base things off of that. So, like, if there's certain days I know that are going to be really long for me, or I have clients that know, like, oh, every Thursday is always a long day at work for me, or every Monday, whatever it might be, then we know we need to plan an easier meal that night. Like, you're not going to want to come home and spend an hour creating some gourmet meal when you're going to be working a really long day. And so planning around that, and just knowing, like, am I going to be eating out this day? Do I need to pack my lunch this day, or am I what's going on? And so the more we can know what our calendar looks like, that's going to be super helpful. So I always encourage clients who are feeling overwhelmed by meal planning to, like, take a few minutes, look at their schedule, and then base things off of that.
What happens if you don't do this, do you think?
So I think it causes a lot of stress, and I think people feel panicked. And I think when they don't feel like they have the foods that they need at home, they tend to resort to eating out or eating something quick and easy that tends to be higher in calories. And then they just feel like it just hasn't set you up for success. And
Mhm.
so I think the more planning you can do, the easier it's going to make it.
Yes, definitely. Because well, I think we live in a world or even in a country that there's just so many high calorie options like push at us all the time through marketing, through social media, through billboards you see all the time. That if you don't plan for those heavy days where you've kind of stressed out, the last thing you want to do, yeah, like you said, is make a heavy meal. Then like all those things I think are going to kind of take over and cause you to gain weight from eating this like higher calorie food. So yeah, I agree. Like planning around those days. I think building off of that, I think my tip would be to like plan for even like emergencies with frozen meals. So this is a problem I come up a lot with clients where yeah, like they've done the whole meal planning thing. Like they try to, have everything stocked up, but then like push comes to shove. And I don't know, they bought strawberries that all went bad. The meat was gross. And then they like don't know what to do. And so what we kind of work on with clients or I do is like maybe putting together some like emergency meals, like frozen cauliflower pizza is like one of my go-tos. Is it like the best thing in the world? No, but there's a little bit of vegetables in it. Like it gets the job done. I'm full. I'm not going to resort to eating just like a chocolate milkshake for dinner. And it's, good enough. And I have it in the house. For some clients, it's like a veggie patty with, I don't know, some sweet potato fries or canned green beans and call it a day. But having like maybe when you're making your grocery list, making sure you have some frozen stuff on stocked up. Or I know you even said before, which I never thought about, like your Kodiak cakes. That's another really great, like
Yeah.
shelf stable, because I know the frozen thing can kind of freak people out, but I feel like you do really well with this. Do you have any other tips that align with like, yeah, like that emergency meal situation? So, this month we're talking all about the health habits you should and shouldn't be adding to your spring health regimen. And adding more produce should for sure be a health habit that you add in. I know that one difficult part about adding in produce is constantly being busy. So, I have a solution for you. It is Bada Bean, Bada Boom, crunchy broad bean snacks. They are roasted broad beans and come in flavors including sweet onion and garlic, mesquite barbecue, and zesty ranch. These are for sure the Millennial Nutritionist approved because they're only 100 calories while containing 6 grams of protein and 4 grams of fiber because they're a bean. Plus, they're actual produce, not like a powder or some sort of manufactured food product. It's really just a bean that's been roasted, flavored, and put in a snack bag. My favorite thing about them is that they're a produce item that you don't have to keep cold, so they're really portable. You could put them in your car, you could put them in your pocketbook for those times when you either forget to have produce or you're out and about and you don't know where to get it. One real life example is my mom came to visit me recently and we did some sightseeing around the big city of Dallas. So I knew we would need some produce items throughout the day or it probably just wouldn't get eaten. So I packed some of these bean snacks. Both she and my mom thought that they were so good. David really liked the sriracha flavor the best, and my mom really liked the sea salt flavor, just to highlight how many really cool flavors they have. And my mom actually ordered them in that moment to be shipped to her house in North Carolina, just as a testament of how tasty they are. I actually found them, the Bada Bean, Bada Boom bean snacks on my own when I was at Aldi in that special section. So they aren't there anymore, but I bought them and was so surprised about how good the flavors were. My favorite flavor is the sweet onion and mustard. They remind me of those like honey mustard pretzels that you would get as a kid at like friends' parties and stuff, and then like just never have them regularly. I showed them on a grocery haul and Bada Bean, Bada Boom reached out to me to give y'all a discount code. So you can order them online now at www.badabeansnacks.com/the Millennial Nutritionist and make sure to use the code the Millennial Nutritionist and make sure to spell it right. We'll put it in the um, show notes, and put in the Millennial Nutritionist code at checkout to receive 15% off. Make sure you order them online because I really can't find them in any other stores now that they're gone off of Aldi. But order them and stop letting busyness be the excuse as to why you're not eating enough produce.
Yeah. So I always have some sort of meal because this happens to me a lot. Like if I'm like traveling, like I was traveling over the weekend this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's like, okay, I'm grabbing random things to make because I haven't gone to the grocery store yet. And so I always have some sort of frozen protein, frozen or canned veggies. And then I normally keep like microwavable brown rice or some like bands of pasta. I always have Kodiak cakes, frozen berries. I typically have yogurt. Obviously that's not a frozen option, but like if you want to make a smoothie, you can do something like that for if you're in a pinch. So yeah, I think definitely having like, I try and have a frozen and a shelf stable. So shelf stable is like some sort of pasta, some sort of canned vegetable, and then some sort of protein. So like tuna or chicken or salmon usually, or beans.
Yeah. And I feel like
throw something together.
Frozen can kind of get a bad rap because I know when I recommended to clients, they're like, why are you recommending frozen? Isn't that bad? But I feel like they've come a long way. Even like Lean Cuisine now has done pretty good with like
healthy choice.
Yeah.
There's options. I also always like, if I make a big batch of anything, I always try and freeze like 2 portions of it. Mm-hmm. And so like you can put it in a freezer bag or a Tupperware. And then I use that too if I'm in a pinch for dinner or even like a lunch. Like I don't have anything to pack for lunch the next day. I can grab one of those and it defrosts while it's sitting at work, and then I can just pop it in the microwave.
I think the produce is where this kind of is hard because it's like there's limited, I feel like more limited options like for shelf stable, but I think, yeah, thinking like canned is good. And I feel like people forget about it. I had one client and that was her like go-to, and I haven't had many. Like every time she's like, I'm just going to keep a bunch of canned green beans because she loved them. Canned green beans. My mom grew up eating like canned beets, which I always thought was gross, but I think
I like canned.
Really?
I always put them on salads because it takes forever to cook beets.
Yes.
Like so long. You can even buy them already cut up. Little things. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah. I feel like beets to me is like kind of like eggs. Like sometimes I like them and then sometimes I'm like, oh, what is this flavor? I think those are good. I always recommend canned carrots. Yeah. I recommend those like little mandarin oranges are great too for fruit. Or applesauce. Those are all like shelf stable that can stay good for a while. And then frozen stuff. I have like a weird aversion, I think, to frozen foods because we ate it so much growing up. Every single night we ate frozen vegetables and I am done with the texture. But I think berries, mangoes, they're even good to eat just like out of the bag too, are super easy. What about another tip from you?
Yeah. So when like building the grocery list, I think the biggest thing, this really helps with money as well, is shopping your own pantry, fridge, and freezer before you decide what kind of meals you're going to prep. So take a look what you have. Like, for example, I had frozen salmon patties and some frozen chicken breasts. So instead of going and like forgetting about those in my freezer and going to buy more of those things this week, I knew like, okay, what meal can I make with this chicken? What meal can I make with this, these salmon patties? And so I think that's super helpful. Or seeing like, oftentimes we buy things, but then we end up not using them. Then they get pushed to the back of the pantry or the bottom of the fridge or freezer. All of a sudden we're cleaning things out and they're expired and we're wasting money, not good for the environment. We're throwing money away. I think really shopping your own house before you make a grocery list is super helpful. And you might like find random things or get creative. You can literally type how to make a meal out of canned whatever, or how to make a meal out of this into Google, and there are recipes out there for it. So I think that's a helpful thing to do and will help save you money for sure.
The only thing about Aldi I have to say is like you only get like certain sizes, especially of protein. So I don't know if you ever run into this since we both don't have kids, but like they only sell chicken in like huge packs.
Family pack, yeah.
Yeah, and which is great because I do think it's cheaper because sometimes I'll be like, I just want to go to Whole Foods and get like one chicken breast. But when I look at the price, I'm like, dang, I could have gotten so much more chicken at Aldi. And so making sure to put it in the freezer, but then making sure that freezer, it doesn't stay in there for like 5 months.
Yeah.
So I like try to write, like I keep there's something on the fridge that's like from Amazon, this like meal planner. And I'll just like put on the next, like flip up the page and on the next week, put like, I need to eat chicken breast, something with chicken breast. So I don't forget.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's so helpful.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I was going to say that too, like shopping with what you have first so that again, yeah, good for the environment, good so you're not wasting things and good for your budget because that can really cut things down. I think
Mhm.
my next tip would be I put like eat like wimpy produce first. I mean, like eat produce
Yeah.
that's going to go bad first. Cause I just hear this a lot from clients where we make these produce goals but people can tend to forget that like produce has like different shelf lives. And so I normally try to eat like I feel like berries go bad really fast. And so trying to eat berries and like bananas go bad like super fast as well. So trying to eat those first, buying like mangoes or avocados that like need a couple days to ripen up so that you can
Mhm.
eat those produce first and then the other like produce it takes a while to ripen up next so that you're again like not wasting food to the point where like you ate the mango first and then like you were going to eat the berries but then all these need to be thrown away and so then you're just like have no produce left in your house when it comes to that. Do you feel like you know of any other produce that like needs to be eaten first or tends to go bad?
I think some like herbs or like if you buy a bunch of cilantro or things
Yeah.
like that, parsley, some
Hmm.
lettuce tends to go bad. I always like really check whatever I'm buying at the grocery store before so that it looks like nothing has started to soil yet.
Yeah.
I think keeping moisture out, so the way that you store it is super helpful as well.
Hmm.
Um, like mushrooms, like if you buy pre-cut mushrooms, I feel like they go bad super quickly.
Hmm.
I feel like those are the big ones that I'm always like aware of. But yeah, that was a tip for mine too, is eat those things first
Yeah.
because you don't want to be wasting that stuff. And I think do like an inventory of your fridge every day. Like you're going to open your fridge every day. So
Yep.
like at least take a quick peek in your produce drawers and see like how are things looking. If something looks like it's about to go bad, then can you use it that day? Or if it's a fruit, you can always wash it and freeze it. If it's a vegetable, you can either cook it or you can like blanch it really quickly and then freeze it. So just
Mhm.
like quick boil and then put it in the freezer and then serve it for another time. So that way, at least you're like keeping tabs on things, not having to throw stuff away. And I think spacing it out is perfect. Yeah. The wimpy stuff in the beginning of the week, the sturdy stuff at the end. I like that.
Yeah, because there is some produce that lasts a while. Like I feel like apples tend to last like sometimes
Yeah.
they can stretch it for like 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm just
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
leave.
Apples last forever. Oranges, a lot of
Yeah.
citrus.
Pineapples, I think they're in season now. They tend to like take a while to ripen up. So like planning it like that. And you kind of touched on something I was going to mention too of like freezing items for later. If like, especially bananas, I feel like you get like a 3-day window to eat bananas. Freezing them for smoothies is really great. And I think it honestly makes the texture better if you eat
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
yeah, add in the frozen bananas. I'm for always doing that.
Just
Spinach
take
too.
the peel off. Don't
Oh,
just put them in the freezer. You gotta peel them.
yeah, I didn't even think about that. And I think it helps sometimes if you break them in half because my blender doesn't do well with like a whole banana frozen. But and spinach, I'm getting ready to go on a trip tomorrow and I have a whole bunch of spinach that I made because again, I bought it at Aldi and I can only buy this big bag. So I'm just gonna freeze the rest of it and throw it into smoothies later on because I know spinach will go bad by the time I get back at the end of the week. Even like you said, like soups or anything large that stays good frozen,
Mhm.
especially in the wintertime, making extra and freezing that. And then I'm not super great with this, but I know that Sarah and Lacey, I feel like I've seen them make content on like freezing interesting things. Like I feel like Lacey made like, I don't know if it was spinach or like herb ice cubes.
Oh, yeah.
Sarah made like those salsa ice cubes and throws them
Mhm.
into like slow cooker chicken things. You
Yeah.
can get really creative with what you freeze.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Essentially anything that's about to go bad, you can get creative with it. Yeah, using those ice cube trays and freezing different things.
Hmm.
I've done that before, like smoothie cubes, things like that, and then you can just throw them in. It's super easy.
Yeah. And so then again, you're just like able to save money, but also able to make sure you have these like higher price point items, the produce, but available to you so that you don't resort to higher calorie foods later on. But what is another tip you have for us?
Yeah, so I think making a plan for dinner is super, super helpful.
Mm.
I think oftentimes people maybe have a good routine for breakfast, lunch, they do leftovers or something else. So I think having a dinner routine is super, super helpful. So whether it's like that client you mentioned, I have clients like that too. They really love these meal delivery services. So they know they're just going to have these and they're going to supplement with X, Y, and Z on the other days when they're not having them.
Hmm.
So I think whether you do a meal delivery or even I have a lot of clients now who are getting different, depending on where they live in different areas, they have healthy meals that are already prepared and you can just go pick them up. And so it's already cooked. You don't have to do any of the cooking, you just reheat them. So that works well for a lot of my clients who are super, super busy and really just don't have the time or capacity at this point to do that. So that's an option. Or if you're going to cook it yourself, again, planning that meal out, knowing what you're going to have for dinner. I always like to make extra so you can have either freeze it or have it for lunch the next day. So figuring out some good different staples that are going to work for you and work for your family so that you can continue to, kind of cycle through those. I think that's a super helpful thing that I do. I kind of have like a spring, summer. I know we've talked about this before, and a
Yeah.
fall winter rotation. So then instead of this like, Pinterest oblivion of like, what am I going to have to eat for dinner? I kind of have this like good rotating list. And of course I was trying new things, but then it makes the meal planning a bit easier.
I don't know if you ever get this. Sometimes I get clients who are like afraid to eat the same thing. Like not like they're eating like one shake for every meal. I would typically be like, no, we need more variety than that.
Mhm.
But, getting nervous about like kind of eating the same thing almost every day or like every couple of days. And I feel like that actually like really helps. I don't know why we have like this huge need to always feel like we need to try like new things all the time, which is great if we do. But sometimes I feel like that can cause people to be so fatigued if they're like always trying to reinvent this new type of dinner all the time. And we can just make it simple and just kind of find, like you said, those 10 basic things every season that work. And it can help just to get your mind off of weight loss, get your mind off of the efforts and focus that on something else. Cause sometimes that causes stress in and of itself.
Yeah. And a lot of research shows that like people that have that consistency, that it actually really helps them sustain long-term results because they're aware of the calories in it. They're
Yep.
aware of how much their body needs. And it just becomes that good routine instead of this like stressful thing.
Yeah. I think kind of like spinning off of that, I would say my tip when it comes to like how to actually plan your meals, if you don't even know how to do that, I think we talked about it in like our episode with the eating out, but protein and produce, like try to just plan that first because carbs, we don't have a problem in America getting carbs in, like that's not going to be an issue. And so at least if you find a way to get in produce and protein in each of your meals, if you are like the type of person who's going to sit down and just take some stock, maybe you're trying to make a grocery list on Sunday and just like make sure you have those like 4 to 5 like servings of produce in the day. And then also where your protein is. Cause when I get clients, that's what they tend to struggle with. And when I ask like, why didn't you meet your protein goal this week? A lot of times they're just like, I've just forgot to even stock up on it, or I didn't have enough. And the same with produce, but it never is like an issue when it comes to carbs or fat, or rarely it is unless
Yeah.
somebody's like overeating. And so like how you can plan that in, I think is I love to eat seasonally as well as far as like produce. Cause sometimes I do get bored of like certain things. Like in the winter, I try to eat like a lot of sweet potatoes and turnips and stuff like that. And then I get bored of it. But then like right around when you're getting bored of it, then you come into watermelon season and it's like super fun. And I eat like one whole watermelon a day, or whatever until I get bored of that. And I think that can help to pay attention there, pay attention to what's at your local farmers markets. And then for protein, I think like finding like a couple, like you said, and just kind of like rotating through can be a good way to go with that. But I feel like you're really good with planning for that part. Do you have any more tips based on that?
Yeah, I definitely rotate through a lot of different things. And I'll leave things open of like, oh, I know I'm going to cook this and this. And then I'll just write on my grocery list, like vegetable to roast or vegetable to whatever, put in
Mhm.
the air fryer, grill. And then again, I just like go to the store, see what looks good, see what's on sale, and I grab that. And again, that's going to really be the season, what's in season at that point. So,
Yeah,
mhm.
because I think that too, like, I don't know if you get clients like this, but I think a lot of people think that we think so much about our meals being super carb heavy, which we're not saying we don't need to do carbs, but that can be typically the food group that is super high in calories. So when we think about like pastas being like this super heavy dish or like a casserole, if we kind of switch our gears and think of like, how are you going to make like produce the star of your
Mhm.
meal first and then just have those other things complement, that helps weight loss and just like that simple switch.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
what is another tip you have for us?
Another tip is to make a list and to follow it. So I know so many people are doing meal delivery, or I mean, grocery delivery or grocery pickup now. I would say, even if you're doing it online, right, like still sticking to that list is super helpful. Making sure like you know where your food's going, right? Like, no, don't just grab random things and have no clue where it's going to be utilized during the week. So
Mhm.
I think it's more tempting when people are going to the store because they're like, oh, well, this is here, this is on display, or this is on sale, or I want that bag of chips or those Cheez-Its or whatever is at the checkout line, or just a candy bar, whatever it may be. We end up buying more things than we need. And so really focusing on like, make your list, stick to your list. That can be super helpful for, what's available at home. That's going to help set you up for success, staying within your budget for the groceries, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I find that some clients say that Instacart can kind of help in this way too, because you're not like as tempted to like go on the aisles and buy different things. Like you just make your list and then go to the computer and you buy what's on your list. And so that can
Yeah.
be helpful if you find that you over spend or feel like, especially if you go to the grocery store hungry and then you end up buying like tons of desserts and stuff like that, or whatever sounds good to you. And then you overeat and then that, makes you gain weight. Next tip is when you are meal planning, one like little specific tip is to, if you're like looking for recipes, like maybe you are starting from scratch or you need a new amount of seasonal recipes. My kind of like sneaky tip is to look at diabetic cookbooks because I find that they're like, first of all, they typically have to have like the calories in the carb or mostly the calories in there because people have diabetes. They have to know how much insulin to administer themselves. Like they have to have that amount in there. And I find that a lot of cookbooks out there, they don't have the calories, which can be hard for people that just can't look at a meal and know how many calories it is since they just started tracking or whatever. And so I think that can help. But then also they typically do skew to be a little bit lower in calorie, but also have a lot more produce because they can't be super carb heavy. And so I like following a bunch of like diabetic cookbooks. I personally love getting cookbooks from Ollie's. Have you ever been to Ollie's or do you know what that is? It's like a discount.
No.
It's kind of like Big Lots. I don't know if you've
Okay.
yeah, so I don't know if they're just like out. I've seen them in Texas and they had them in North Carolina. They're just like big like warehouse stores that get like overflows of things. And
Cool.
actually when we first started, I give like a present to clients. It's a cookbook and I used to get them all from Ollie's before. I was like, I don't know why I'm not just doing this on Amazon. Because they have cookbooks there for like $3 and they have tons of them that are like diabetic cookbooks. And I think that's just like, if you're looking for like where to start with recipes, that's good. Cause I don't know if I get a lot of clients who say that they're like looking for people to follow or they look for stuff on TikTok. Where do you normally direct them if they are looking for recipes?
One, the Millennial Living, I always direct them there because
Good.
there's tons of great recipes there and
Mhm.
that's super helpful. And we know that they're going to fit in with what our goals are. So that's the first place for clients that I recommend they go. And then otherwise it just kind of depends. So I kind of have like a list of different options that I'll send clients if like they have a family and they want some more kid friendly recipes that'll go for there. Yeah, different cookbooks that I utilize. I have used diabetic ones as well, and I think they're super helpful. I even like gestational diabetes. I did some work with that, and they had a ton of recipes that were like very similar to the regular diabetes, but just very balanced meals that I think are great. There's tons of blogs, tons of things out there, and so it just kind of depends on what people are looking for. I don't have like two or three. I guess I have a few. I really like sometimes Skinny Taste. I like their
Oh
recipes.
yeah.
Good
I
ones
think
too.
that's a dietitian, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure she's a dietitian.
Yeah.
And then I think it's her website is like Damn Delicious. She
Oh,
has
that's
a
good.
lot of good stuff on there too. I like her recipes as well. I am terrible at following recipes. I
Oh
think
yeah,
we
you
before.
are.
I'm so bad. And so I like never follow any recipes myself. I like see a picture. I'm like, oh, that looks good. I'll try and make that myself. And then I just do it. So I love like cookbooks for inspiration and like looking for different things. And I will follow some recipes.
That's so funny. How do you find success with that? Do you just like have to like you just have like your basic things that you continue to follow, right? Because that like does really stress me out to like not have an exact recipe to follow.
Yeah. Of the meals that I continue to rotate through, I just know how to make them. I don't make anything crazy. Like I
Mm.
see a lot of things that you're making out that are like very gourmet. Like I'm not a chef by trade. My mom hates cooking. So like everything is very self-taught. So it's like simple things like tonight we had brown rice, turkey burgers, and like just a plain turkey burger and roasted asparagus. So like it's like so simple.
Yeah.
I made like chicken burrito bowls. So I had made salsa chicken. I had canned beans, canned corn, and then I sauteed peppers and onions. So it's like super, we're not doing anything crazy here. I do make like shakshuka, we really like, which is
Mhm.
literally just, it sounds fancy, but it's really not. It's just peppers, onions, big can of diced tomatoes. You poach eggs in there and then serve it with like some parsley on top and feta and some bread. So I'll do that. Fajitas. Yeah, I'm not doing like very gourmet things. It's just simple. Like I would love dinner to be cooked in less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'm so jealous of that. I'm trying to get more into that now. I've been doing more like snack dinners,
Mhm.
and that's been fine. I have like every time I have clients that like will do the whole like prep protein in the beginning, and then they just like use it for different variations. Maybe like
Yeah.
ground some beef and maybe do like tacos one day or like a soup the next day and are just like kind of mixing up, I'm always like, oh my gosh, are you going to be okay? Is that enough? And they're like, yeah, I'm not very fancy. But it's good. That's why I like to highlight all of y'all, because everybody is very different in how they kind of plan and how they like execute. I have some clients that, yeah, all they want to do is like make a grocery list loosely with make sure they have produce on there, protein, some healthy carbs, and some like down to the T want to plan out like all the recipes I have and everything like that. And there's not a right or wrong way. It's really just like what, works for you. So I feel like we covered some good bases there with planning, but I hope this really helps people to figure out how to plan a little bit better. And yeah, definitely check out Millennial Living for more tips and more kind of like organized culminations of like what we're going to do for our food demo and our like module on like planning 101. But this was a good little advertisement for that. So thank you so much for joining us for it, Kat.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Isla.
Thank you so much for listening to the Millennial Nutritionist podcast. For daily weight loss tips and nutrition information, you can find us on Instagram at the.millennial.nutritionist and on TikTok at millennial.nutritionist. If you find this information helpful, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend who needs encouragement on their health journey. See you in the next episode.